Hey there honeybees, this is an episode of Rambling Witch. It's really nice to be back talking about witchy things on my channel. I have been wondering for a while what I wanted to talk about in my next Rambling Witch episode, because there were some little things that were kind of rolling around in my headspace, but not enough to make a complete video, because I do like Rambling Witch to be reasonably long, so you've got quite a lot to chew on, and I feel like I've put quite a lot into one episode. And then it occurred to me that I'm doing a lot of solitary witch readings lately. The solitary witch spread is a spread over on kellyannemadickal.com that you can purchase in the online store. It's been one that I've been doing for quite a long time now, and it's gone through a couple of incarnations. I've recently just kind of evolved it so that it has a 7th spread position now that I really value and I really think adds something to the reading. So overall the spread positions have kind of changed slightly over time, but I've had a solitary witch reading for a really long time now, and it does continue to be popular. It is one that I really enjoy doing. I love delving into somebody else's solitary witchy practice. There's something about that that not only do I find really interesting and really engaging, but also I find it useful. I find it useful for me as a way to check in with what I'm doing and what my practice is looking like, and also it's a massive honour. It's a huge privilege to be privy to a slice of somebody else's path and to be able to offer some help and some guidance from the cards for a fellow solitary practitioner. That's something that I never thought in my earlier years that I'd ever be able to do in my lifetime, and it's actually happening. It's actually a part of what I do for work, so it's really meaningful to me, and it's an honour. And it's a privilege. The spread positions for the solitary witch reading have really been making me think lately. Every single time I do a reading for a client, a solitary witch reading, I think about what the different focus areas mean to me. The different themes that are involved in this 7-card spread really speak to me differently depending on when I'm doing it, depending on what's going on for me in my path. And I've definitely done the solitary witch spread for myself a few times. I'm going to leave these 7 spread positions down below for your consideration, and today I'm just going to talk about them and talk about how you can really connect with them and think about them, and maybe use them for journaling prompts, maybe use them to think about how you can get unstuck if you're feeling stuck, and a little bit about how I'm feeling about each of the 7 spread positions themes as well. So really just kind of using these 7 card positions to check in with what I'm thinking and feeling. If you feel like grabbing an oracle deck or a tarot deck so you can follow along with the cards, do that. I'm not going to be following along using cards. I'm just going to be kind of riffing and talking about what the 7 spread positions make me think of and what's going on for me, but certainly I will leave the spread positions down below in the down bar so that you can use them to give yourself a reading. And of course, if you want a solitary witch reading with me, I'm always here. I'm pretty much always available. I'll leave the link to the solitary witch reading down below if you would like to know what the cards say when I throw them for you. So in my solitary witch reading, the very first spread position is your current strengths as a witch. And one thing that I pretty much always stress to people, particularly if they get a video reading or a Skype reading, I think I sometimes do forget to put it in the email option at times, but with a video reading or Skype reading, I always mention that the first spread position is very much geared towards what your specific strengths are right now. So rather than looking at your strengths overall on the witchy journey, I really like to tune in with what is most pertinent at the time that a client receives a reading, and just give them the opportunity to really fully check in with what their strengths are. And my readings are not really to do with telling someone about themselves or instructing them to do something. My readings are much more about inviting a client to analyze things for themselves and move into their own sense of what their strengths are. And I always really recommend that clients think seriously about what they think of what I'm saying and what resonates with them, rather than just obviously kind of passively accepting or just willingly swallowing what I'm saying. Sometimes when you hear something in a reading, and this is something I will say whether you're getting a reading from me, anyone else, whether you're just hearing from spirit what's coming through for you while you're doing the cards yourself, sometimes when you're doing a reading, something will come through and it does not resonate. And not only does it not resonate, but it kind of makes you feel a little bit irritated or a little bit kind of like, why did that come up? That really isn't anything to do with the situation. And I think those things can be gold as well. Those things are worth looking at too. So whenever I use the cards to describe to a witch what kind of strengths are pertinent in them at the time of having the reading, I think it's important not only that they consider whether or not that resonates with them and what they want to do with that information, but also if it doesn't resonate with them and it makes them feel some feelings about what I've said, then also just delving into that and exploring doing that as well. And when I do readings, I always do some kind of home exercises to do, some homework. If you've ever had a reading with me, I usually suggest things that you can be doing or thinking about or getting on with, and email readings particularly have all of these little kind of exercises in bold that I suggest that you do, that you can go away and do on your own time. And I think that also helps people to delve into the things which may not have resonated so much and think about why they may or may not be useful. And also they can look back on the reading and see whether or not anything resonates later. That's definitely something that's happened to me when I've had readings from other witches. Something doesn't resonate and may even have gotten up my nose a little bit, and then it becomes abundantly clear later on exactly why that message was there. And usually it was something that I either didn't want to see at the time, or it comes to make sense later based on things that have taken place later. So definitely really worth also going back over a reading. So anyway, that was a massive tangent about readings, which I am going to leave in because I am the tangent queen. But current strengths as a witch, that's the very first of the 7 positions. And so for me, I would say that my current strength as a witch right now is the willingness to try, the willingness to actually dare to go in a different direction, try something new, try something that maybe I never thought I would try before, or it really didn't resonate. I really didn't feel like it was something that would be good for me on my path. And also just the willingness to step over my desire for perfection in my workings and my practice. And that's something that I feel has risen to prominence with me a few times and then gone the way of the dodo again. So what I mean is, like, I've had certain times on my path where I feel like I definitely have gotten over my desire for things to be perfect and things to be stringent and things to be just so. And I've actually let myself just flow into what needs to happen in a working or in a practice. And then that desire for perfectionism has come back in again, and I've become really rigid again, and I've become really, you know, I've basically become stuck basically, and there's not a lot of movement and there's not a lot of action taking place, because once again I'm stuck in this feeling of it's got to be right, and it's not going to be right at this moment, so I can't do it. In terms of the willingness to try new things, there's a couple of things I will say about that have been going on for me on my path recently. First of all, a few months ago when I started at the gym, I decided to begin working with affirmations. Now, you could just say that affirmations are another form of words of power or mantras kind of thing, and they are, but I think affirmations are designed specifically to kind of help you to put yourself in a mindset that you're not actually in yet, in order to kind of invite the energy that you're looking to cultivate in your life. And you can use affirmations in different ways. I don't think you necessarily have to use present tense affirmations like I am strong and successful and independent. If you really don't feel those things and you feel like it's disingenuous to use present tense affirmations, you don't have to. You can use kind of like intentional affirmations, if you will. So things like I will spend this day in the seat of my power, I will make all decisions, you know, through the lens of the soul, or whatever. So it's not really about like I am empowered and independent, but it's about saying I intend to be, this is what I'm going to do today. So you can do it like that. But the affirmations that I've been using have been very present tense. They are very much me saying I am in control of this, I am the kind of person who, and that's something I never would have thought in a million years that I would be placing into my practice. That's something that I definitely didn't feel was for me for a really long time. I felt like trying it. I felt like, fuck it, I'm going back to the gym, and that's something very different. That's something I haven't done for a long time. Why don't I try something completely different to go with it? And that's been really awesome. I've really actually enjoyed that, and it's the very first thing that I put into my new book of shadows / mirrors / witchy stuff. And that's another way in which I have sort of chosen to go off the beaten track, try something new, because my new book of shadows / mirrors is actually a Filofax domino, which I got secondhand. It's a black Filofax domino, and basically it's a lot like this beast right here, except this is my, you know, ordinary everyday Filofax that I use for loads of things, and the black one over there by my altar is just for the witchy stuff. But I decided to switch to a Filofax domino after being inspired to do so by a client of mine, and I just really I love it. It's great because obviously you can change it up as many times as you want. That's the main reason I love working with a Filofax now as my planner and organizer, is that you can change things up, you can have different sections, you can get rid of those sections when you don't need them anymore, you can customize them, take pages out, put pages in, and you always have this, you know, it's not wasteful. It just makes so much sense. So the idea of me coming to a Filofax Domino as my witchy book, the idea of me coming to that so late is really funny to me, because you would have thought it would have occurred to me a hell of a lot earlier, but it totally didn't. I think there's something for me about the bound book that just feels a lot more sacred and a lot more in alignment with what it is to be a witch for me. So I think that's why it didn't occur to me that I really should just use a ring binder, you know, book, if that's what's given me so much joy with my planning and organising and my life stuff, you know. There's definitely something about the bound book, actually, now that I think about it. And I think a lot of people who do otherwise use a ring binder kind of thing for other stuff and find it really useful would not necessarily be prepared to go to one for their Book of Shadows or Book of Mirrors, because it doesn't feel right. And I can understand that, but I'm really glad that I made the switch. So that's something else that I've done, that I have tried, that's been different. So I think my strength right now is the willingness to try new things, definitely. And also, as I mentioned, the willingness to just let myself do things without worrying about it being right and everything being perfect and everything being just so. And like I said, I've been on and off the carousel with that over time, because I have actually helped a lot of witches to get over that in their own practice because of the techniques and the tools that I've used to get over it in my practice. But at the end of last year, I had a couple of really big workings that I wanted to do for really big things. And I was very, very nervous about these workings, and I was just overthinking it. I was just really playing it up too much in my head. I wasn't doing myself any favours with it. I was really just coming from this place of feeling like I needed everything to be so fucking ceremonial and over the goddamn top. And in the midst of all that overthinking, the workings themselves actually just ended up on the back burner. And that was when I really had to talk to myself again and be like, look, come on, you know that this is not the way to witch, and you've got to just basically take risks and have fun. And the way that I have always seen it is that the more risks a witch is willing to take, the more they're willing to get their hands dirty, then the more fun they actually have, and the more profound and meaningful and enjoyable the practice actually is. The second spread position for my solitary witch reading is positive changes to consider making at the moment. So with the second spread position, it's really just all about what you can bring in that's positive, what you can shift that's positive, any little tweaks that you can make that may potentially make the practice better. And you will notice that the wording of the spread position is positive changes to consider making at the moment, because I really want to be totally sure that I'm just giving the client things to consider. I'm not saying you need to change this on your witchy journey. I'm literally just saying consider these things. You know, that's what the card has brought up, and that's what you might want to consider at the present time. I mean, there's not really anything at the moment that I feel like I really need to change. I definitely did feel that my tarot area needed an overhaul, and I do consider my tarot area to be sort of an addition to my altar, and I definitely felt like it needed to be shifted. I needed to put a kind of inspiration board there that I needed to make, and I just needed to make sure that I had a kind of sacred vibe to it, and I've done that. I've actually recently done that. I feel much happier with how it is now. So that's definitely something that I thought about changing for a while, and I definitely thought about doing the power board, or the inspiration board if you will, for quite a long time before I actually sat down and did it, and now it's done. I'm really, really happy. Another thing that I think I might want to consider changing potentially is I'm not really throwing the runes as much, to be honest with you. A while ago I showed you guys the unboxing and first impressions of the Tower of Bones, and I mentioned that I would want to be using that for working with my matron and working with that energy, and I'm doing that now, but I feel like it's kind of kicked the work I was doing with the runes out of the equation a bit. So I feel like I might need to bring them back in, because I definitely get a very different feeling from throwing the runes when I'm working with the energy of my matron, for sure. And I have a specific cloth that I use with a layout on it that I find that is really useful. I think one of the reasons that I don't throw the runes so much, now that I'm thinking about it, is that the rune stones that I have are made of amber, and they are gold embossed on them. And actually that makes it quite difficult sometimes to see them straight away. So I throw the runes and I just basically kind of have to kind of zoom in a little bit and look at what is actually there. And what I would like to have are some quite big bold ones that are just black or just white with the opposite for the letter, so that I actually can see what I'm looking at straight away and I don't feel like they're fiddly. I feel like the amber ones with the gold that I've got are kind of fiddly. They glint in the light and they're very decorative and very beautiful, but they're not kind of like, bam, I'm here, this is the rune spread, this is what's going on. And now that I've realised, now that I'm talking to you guys, I'm realising that that actually isn't quite what I want. So I might have to invest at some point in some much more bold, much more kind of there sort of runes. I did actually years ago have a practice set of runes which were exactly like that. They weren't exactly big, they were small, and they came with a rune learning book that I got. So they were relatively inexpensive, they weren't super precious or anything, and they were white with black rune markings on them, and they were really good. But unfortunately I decided that I was going to start using them in mojo bags for other people, whenever sort of people went away abroad or traveling, or just gifts for people that were feeling under the weather or that needed good energy. So it was like a gift giving thing, and I do that sometimes. I've actually broken into a couple of tarot decks that I purchased specifically for sending tarot, one card tarot readings to people that send things to my PO box. I don't do that all the time because it got a bit much, but I do that sometimes. So that's one way in which I actually take something that's supposed to exist as a set and I kind of start like sending it away to different people, just whichever one is the most relevant, whichever one fits. So I did that with my practice runes, and now I'm thinking like, damn, I need some runes that are a little bit more bold. Key advice to stay inspired and motivated on your solo witchy path. That is the third spread position in the solitary witch reading that I do, and I love that one. There's always some really interesting things that come through in those particular cards. So if I needed to advise myself of ways to stay inspired and motivated on the witchy path, I would definitely tell myself something that I often tell myself, which is don't overdo it. Don't overwhelm yourself with loads and loads and loads of shit. Really be realistic about what you can get done and prioritize what would be the most fun as well as the most effective and useful. One thing that I've really done in the last year that I have loved doing, that I'm so happy that I've done, is I've combined much more closely the creative and the spiritual. And I think I've done that sort of over the past 4 or 5 years, but I really started to do that over the last sort of 12 months to 18 months. I was like, okay, from now on, my journal lives at my altar. My gratitude journal lives at my altar. These other things that I write in that I told myself were nothing to do with spirituality, nothing to do with being a witch, they're going to live there. And I have like my little sketchbook on my altar as well. I've got like a, I've always got a little sketchbook going on with different bits and pieces in it. This was literally just right next to the camera, so I may as well show you some of it. But yeah, I've always got a sketchbook where I'm doing like different mandalas and just different pieces that I'm playing with. And to me, this kind of thing never used to be like a witchy act per se, and now I keep all of that stuff by the side of my altar. So I've come to this point on my journey where I'm much more about mixing the artistic with the spiritual and seeing it all as one and the same thing, and that has been so incredibly helpful for me. It's been helpful for my business, it's been helpful for me in coming back to writing poetry again after rather a long hiatus in that regard. So definitely kind of just telling myself those two things are married now, you know. That's definitely been really helpful for me. It's been so rejuvenating for me as an artist, as an artistic being. I mean, I don't have to do all of my artistic stuff at my altar by any means, but I keep the stuff there to make that association that there really is kind of like a bond there between those two things, and I can carve out sacred space and do art in sacred space and write in sacred space, and whatever comes through is of divinity, and there is that shard of divinity in it, and it is for me to learn from and take from and appreciate. And that has been a really useful thing for me. I'm so glad that I did that. That was a change that I needed to make, that I went ahead and made, and I'm happy that I did. The next spread position is how to heighten your magical powers and make a bigger impact in workings. I really enjoy when this card comes up for a client as well. I'm really fascinated to see what comes through. It's very interesting, very cool. For me, making an impact in work workings definitely has got a lot to do with what I am influenced by and what I'm absorbing, what I'm imbibing, what I'm actually drinking in. And so to me, it's really about like the music I'm listening to, the art that I'm into, the things that I'm learning about, the stuff that I'm researching, the films that I'm watching, you know, the books that I'm really delving into. It's about new words that I'm discovering. It's about conversations I'm having. It's about plans that I'm making and following through with. To me, magic is definitely connected to how connected I feel to myself, to others, and to the world around me. I have noticed that I'm so much more inspired with my workings if I am reading good stuff, watching good stuff, listening to good stuff, feeling as though I'm being inspired by other things around me. And I've noticed that my magical workings, my ritual, anything that I do with my practice, anything new that I try, has a much greater impact if I feel inspired and empowered at the time that I'm doing those things, or designing those things, or brainstorming those things. I have said before on my channel that words are a massive part of what I do with my spellcraft. They're a massive part of what I do with ritual. They're a huge part of what I do with my spiritual practice, my mantras, my meditations, my visualizations, my devotionals. Words are huge. Words are really important. And I will very, very often read poetry so that I feel primed to write the poetic stuff that I need to write, you know, to do what I need to do when I'm witching. So to me, words are really a very big, very important animal when it comes to a lot of the stuff that I do in my witchy practice, my spiritual practice, you know. And so to me, what I'm imbibing in terms of words is important. I want to feel connected to my language. I want to feel connected to the way that other people feel connected to it. I want to enjoy conversation. I want to listen to lyrics and really think about what they mean. I want to learn new words and new phrases and new terminology. I want to enjoy trying to put those things into a sentence and kind of like running with them and playing with them. I really enjoy that kind of stuff, and I enjoy looking at how different people use language, and all of that kind of thing really contributes to a strong practice of spellcraft, a strong ritual practice, really good words of power that I'm using, really good kind of like sentences of power that I'm using to just really kick things off and make things really pop, basically. I'm a magpie for words that hold a strong energy, that have such a vital essence to them. And I find them everywhere, all over the place. I see them, you know, in the graffiti on the walls in the city. I see them in poetry by Rumi and Hafiz. You know, I hear them when I walk past a bus stop and I just eavesdrop on a conversation. I see them in the things that I read when I'm tired and I mistake what something said. And I'm like, oh wow, that's inspired. And then I look at it again and I'm like, oh, that's not what it says. And then I realize it was my mind that gave me that gem of inspiration. It was my mind that gave me that incredible diamond, I suppose, of tangled language. And it's for me. It's for me from the cosmos, and I use it, I take it, I pick it up and I use it. I know that I've definitely quoted this on the channel before, but it's a great quote, so it could stand to be used again. But Leonard Cohen once said that if his life is burning well, poetry is just the ash. And I love that quote, and I think similarly about witchcraft, not just about the spellcraft aspect of it, but about the whole animal. I think that if my life is burning well, then witchcraft is just the ash. Witchcraft is what will happen as a result of me kind of connecting with things, learning, engaging with people, engaging with myself. I feel like a lot of the inspired stuff that happens for me in my craft is a result of feeling inspired by life. And that's not to say that I don't think witchcraft is for the crappy times, because I do, I absolutely do, and it has helped me in those times. But I definitely feel like a lot of the most inspired and fun and interesting things that have happened to me, or that I've learned whilst witching, have been the result of feeling like I'm connected to life. And so witchcraft is just what I've got to do. Just like Leonard Cohen was kind of saying, well, if I'm connected to life and things are happening that I'm learning about in life and I'm both into life, then poetry is just what I have to do. It's what has to come through me. There's no question. And I feel very similarly about the witchy stuff. I feel like it's what has to happen. Things to consider reducing or eliminating. This is the next spread position in the solitary witch reading. I like this one because, you know, it's pretty sort of, it speaks in a straight sentence. Like, it's about what you might want to remove, what you might want to have less of in your practice, what might be distracting you from having a good practice. So there's definitely an invitation sometimes for certain clients to go into a shadow exploration of what it is that might be blocking them. And for other clients, it's more a case of just like, you know, maybe you didn't notice that this was a problem for you. Maybe you didn't notice that this element needs to be questioned or needs to be reduced. So depending on the client and their circumstances and what's coming through for them, the answer that comes through from this card can be really different from person to person. There's two things that I can think of that I need to reduce / eliminate at the moment that I can be really honest about and upfront about and say that they need to go. Okay, first of all, I really need to get to grips with the fact that it is winter in this country right now and it is cold. And we have a cold front coming in at the moment, which means it's colder in my area than it has been so far. I feel like so far we've kind of gotten away with it, but now it is really fucking cold. You know, the kind of cold where you get in from the cold and your ears are actually hurting. They are throbbing from cold kind of thing. So since it's been winter, or like late autumn and moving into winter, I have definitely made a little bit of a choice between spending most of my time at the gym or spending most of my time at the altar before I actually get into my client calls and client readings. So for me, my working day starts at 10 a.m. on a working day. Before 10 a.m. I normally do not look at my emails. I do not do anything, you know, in my storefront or on my website. I may put something on social media if I feel inspired to do so, but essentially it's my time. And I have found that because I do not want to get out of bed at like 5:15, 5:30 to go to the gym for 6, I tend to lie in bed and kind of go to the gym at like 6, 6:30. But then now I've stepped my gym sessions up to 90 minutes instead of an hour. I tend to find that by the time I get back, I don't really have enough time for the witchy stuff that I want to do. I don't have enough time for maybe the degree of chanting that I want to do, the stuff that I need to write down, maybe the cauldron work I had in mind for the night before I won't do because I went to the gym kind of late. That has just got to stop. I can't do that all winter. That's just not conducive to being a witch in the way that I want to be a witch. So that's one thing. And the next thing that I definitely know I need to get rid of also is kind of practical, and that is that there is some stuff in the living room that I'm waiting on a friend to take to their place, so that I can have that space in the living room. So there's like a desk there. There's a few things that I need to sort out as well, but mostly it's like a bag of clothes that one friend needs to take. There's a desk that somebody else needs to take. There's stuff that needs to go from that area. And I know what I want to do with that area. I want that area to be my home workout, yoga and meditation kind of area, where I suspect that I'm also going to be doing some of my personal readings for myself and also potentially some workings. So I really need to get that area clear. And I've been kind of just ignoring it and being like, oh, it'll get clear when it gets clear. But actually, I want the clutter and the stuff gone. And so that's another reason I'm really glad I'm making this video right now, because I'm thinking, you know what, I actually want that area clear. I want to do my stuff there. I want to put the cloth down there that I've bought for it. And I want to just really get that being a working area. It's definitely not going to be super, super permanent. I am going to take the cloth up and fold it away when I have people round and things like that. But for the average day to day, it's going to be another space that I have at my disposal for doing witchy stuff and self-care stuff. And I know that that stuff has got to go, or the clutter that's there has got to go if I really want to get started with my good intentions in that area. So yeah, that's another thing that I need to do. And I'm definitely going to do a jump cut here while I write that down in my Filofax, because I know that it needs to be something that I've got to be accountable for. Okay, so the next one is a bit difficult because the spread position is hidden issues which may be causing a problem at the moment. And obviously the issues are hidden, so it's not as though I can see them, because the spread position itself is designed to really lean into stuff that you might want to look at that you haven't looked at before. So it's really just about using the cards to bring to mind anything that you might not actually have clocked that you need to actually look into. Okay, fuck it, I've got the Morgan Greer on hand, so let's just do this. I'm a little bit nervous what's going to come up now. Definitely wasn't going to be using the cards. I was just going to be thinking about what I think about this stuff, but I kind of forgot that one of the spread positions kind of is about delving into what is not currently being seen and putting the focus more on what might be just outside of your peripheral vision. And I do like to do that with my readings. Anyone that's had a reading from me, you probably had a card that was called something like hidden information and unseen aspects, or blind spots, or something like that. And that's because I do like to use the cards to look into the stuff that maybe we haven't chosen to focus on for the rest of the reading. It's like in any other business card where anything else that might want to come through can come through, and sometimes it's just an underlining of what already has been stated in the reading, and at other times it is definitely a message that had nothing to do with any of the other messages or insights, and that's definitely an exciting thing. So the card that's come through to help me to understand what kinds of hidden issues might be causing a problem is, oh, temperance. Interesting. That is a very interesting one to come through. Cool. Okay. Well, to me, you know, temperance is definitely about refining things. It's about having those perfect ingredients and being able to turn them into something that is bigger than the sum of its parts. That's one interpretation of temperance that I really love. It's about alchemy. It's about taking different things and combining them together to create something holistic and cohesive that works even better than the things did individually, kind of thing. And I feel like that is actually really appropriate for me right now, because there are a couple of things on my path at the moment that I'm interested in, that I am feeling an emotional pull to, but I'm not quite sure how they would work within the layout of what I've got going on at the moment. And I think that might be stopping me from really kind of looking into and researching certain things that I know are probably going to be really good for me and really good for what I'm doing. But because I can't see how they would fit in full time to the kind of theological framework, if you will, that I've got going on right now, I'm kind of stalling on really looking into those things properly. And I think what the temperance card is probably telling me is that it might be a good idea for me to sit down and just strategize how this might go, not in terms of inviting those things into the overall practice, but maybe just looking at things I might want to research, you know, just basically taking the pressure off of myself and enjoying the exploration, enjoying the adventure. Sometimes I actually use my YouTube channel for this kind of thing. So like if I am resisting looking into something or learning about something or getting to grips with the finer points of something, it might be a good idea for me to figure out how I would want to delve into it in a video that I'm doing, and actually put those points down and learn about what I would want to say for those points. And sometimes that might turn into a video, sometimes it might not. Most of the time it doesn't. It's just a way of working through it, because with my YouTube videos that I do, quite often I do write notes to make sure that I include everything I want to include. So basically this is one of the key books that I use for my YouTube notes. And let's just have a look at the last set of notes I did. So this is for a video on spiritual emergencies. And you can see that, you know, I'm quite detailed with what I want to put in, just to remind myself. Normally what I'll do when I'm doing a video is I just literally glance at the notes, and I don't actually need to read them. I literally just glance at the first couple of words. So the first part of the spiritual emergencies notes is individual undergoes intense shift in their values. From there, I'll remember everything else that I want to say, and I'll just speak it to camera. But the notes are there so that the first time I write them down, I can get really clear in my head about what it is that I want the video to be about, what I want it to include. So I usually try and do a similar kind of technique with anything that I'm unsure of, where I'm like, okay, well, let's just say that I want to learn about this thing that I don't know much about. And let's say that I want to learn about its origins, where it exists in culture, how to deal with it if you come across it, and further reading or whatever. And then from there, I can fill in those blanks with the research that I do. So I kind of use it, I use my note-taking process for YouTube and my clarification process for YouTube in a similar way as I do for things in my spiritual practice that I want to approach. So that might be a good thing to do. And the other thing I want to say about the temperance card as well is that for me, the temperance card can often be about gaining knowledge from disembodied intelligences that are beyond the cognitive, connections to like angelic beings, ancestral beings, spirit guides, deities, that kind of thing. And it can be about having spiritual downloads, having spiritual experiences come through which are really useful and really healthy and actually provide you with something nourishing. And the main thing I want to say about how that might be a sign of something that's a problem for me right now that I'm not seeing is that I definitely feel like I want to expand my tribe in a way, if you will. I don't even want to use the word tribe. Some people use the word tribe, some people use the word army. I don't know what word I would use. Disco. I want more people at the disco. I want to be able to call on more archetypes and more beings and really connect with more personified energies. And I am not letting myself do that for some reason, or at least not as fully as I could be. So there's a few thoughts I have about that. I won't share them, but there are a few thoughts I have about why that might be. But I definitely also think I'm just standing in my own way right now. And there's some thoughts that I have about that, and also about beings that I have worked with in the past that I feel like they are coming through again now in the present, and I need to just let go and flow into it and let those beings in, kind of thing. So that's a kind of interesting thing that I've just realised as well. Oh, and also, before I wrap up with the temperance thing, I definitely think it can be about balance and it can be about harmony, and I do need to find a balance and a harmony between the stuff I'm doing for work and the stuff I'm doing for me, and that's definitely something that I've grappled with on and off since I went full-time with my business, definitely, and it's something that I could always stand to be reminded of. So it's not necessarily that it's a massive thing for me right now, it's more that I could always stand to be reminded of that. You know, with me, it's either too much fun and social and all the rest of it and not enough focusing on the biz, or it's the other way around. So it's just always about creating that harmony, and I think temperance really speaks to that very well. What does it really mean to be a witch at this point on your journey? That is the final spread position for my solitary witch reading, and I decided to add this position. Actually, this wasn't actually originally in the spread, but I just thought it was something that came through to me really like a flash of inspiration, and I just thought, you know what, I really want a 7th position that kind of just helps somebody really like nail down what it is that it really means to be a witch at this point as they're having the reading. And what it means for me to really be a witch, I think, is just that I still connect so much with that word and all of the power and the energy that's behind it. And I feel like I have connected to that word and the energy behind it my whole life since I heard that word and understood what it meant. And so for me, there would be something really disingenuous about walking away from it now. And I also feel like it's a way for me to heal. It's a way for me to work things out. It's a way for me to bring more colour and fun and energy into my life. And it's a way for me to be a better human being as well. It definitely does help me to be a better human being. It helps me to have more patience, more compassion, more empathy, more vision. And it helps me to recognise my potential and honour my potential rather than wasting it and squandering it. That was a short and sweet answer, but I feel like it definitely encapsulates what I think about what it means to be a witch at this point on the journey. I encourage you to look at these 7 spread positions, these focus areas, if you will, and really just think about what they mean to you and what your answers would be. And if you want to use cards, if you want to use runes or anything like that, do so. If you just want to think about what is going through your mind when you have a look at these focus areas, then do that. I would love to know your answers to one or all of the questions below. I'd love to know which questions or focus areas really made you think, which ones felt difficult for you, which ones were a challenge for you, which ones really helped you to understand something about where your witchy practice is right now and where you can go with it and what it really means to you. I would love to find out your perspectives on this stuff, and I will definitely also leave the solitary witch reading option below if you would like me to read for you and let you know what I see in the cards. I will certainly do that. I've really enjoyed this Rambling Witch episode. It's been so much fun. Much love until the next one, and blessed be witches. Mwah.